There was a town on the shores of the Sea of Galilee called Magdala. It was a bustling village known for its markets, its boats, and the constant hum of people moving from one place to another. But among the noise of merchants and fishermen, among the rugged men who worked the waters and the women who managed the households, there was one figure whose story did not blend into the crowd. Her name was Mary. People in Magdala knew her face, but not in the way someone is known for kindness, beauty, or generosity. Mary was recognized because something in her eyes seemed broken, as if she lived in a world no one else could see. Her suffering was silent, but it clung to her like a shadow. She had not always been that way. There was a time when Mary walked through the village like any other woman. She carried baskets of fish from the shoreline, washed her garments in the public wells, and laughed with the other daughters of Magdala. But slowly something shifted inside her. No one knew when it began. Some said it happened after she lost someone she loved. Others whispered she had been cursed or marked by misfortune. Slowly her mind became a battlefield and she was the only one fighting the invisible war. There were days when Mary wandered to the cliffs above the sea, staring into the waves as if they were calling her. Other times she would collapse in the streets, trembling and crying out words that frightened those around her. Families pulled their children close, fishermen avoided her path, and even those who knew her since childhood no longer approached her. They feared what they did not understand. The whispers followed her everywhere. Some said darkness lived inside her. Others claimed she brought misfortune to anyone who came too close. Mary heard everything even when they thought she didn't. Inside her home the nights were worse. Shadows twisted in her mind. She felt tormented by thoughts she could not control, trapped between fear and exhaustion. When she tried to sleep, her dreams became storms. When she tried to pray, her words tangled. She knew she was losing herself. And so she lived each day carrying the weight of a suffering she could not explain. Everything changed on the day she met him. The stories about the teacher from Nazareth had spread across Galilee. Stories of the blind seeing, the lame walking, and the broken being restored. Mary didn't believe the stories at first. They sounded too hopeful, too far from anything she had ever experienced. But when he entered Magdala, people gathered in the streets, calling his name. Mary felt something stirring in her chest, something she had not felt in years. It was small, fragile, almost painful. It was hope. She approached him not with confidence but with desperation. When his eyes met hers, she felt exposed as if he saw everything inside her. The years of torment, the nights of fear, the moments she wished she could disappear. She expected him to look away like everyone else. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped closer and the world around her seemed to grow still. His voice was calm, steady, gentle. And in a single moment, the weight she had carried for so long began to crumble. What happened next was something Mary could never fully explain. It was as if invisible chains snapped apart. The darkness that had clung to her mind dissolved. For the first time in years she felt clarity. She felt peace. She felt like herself again. When she looked around, the streets were the same, the people were the same, but she was not. She stood taller. She breathed deeper. He felt whole. From that day on, Mary followed him. She walked with the other women who supported his ministry, women who had also been changed by his presence. Mary knew what it was like to live in darkness, so she understood the depth of the light she had received. She traveled through villages and fields, listening to his teachings, witnessing miracles, and seeing lives transformed. The more she followed him, the more she understood that her healing was not just a gift. It was a calling. She was there when the crowds pressed around him. She was there when the sick reached out with trembling hands. She was there when he spoke words that stirred hearts and unsettled those who feared his authority. She watched as people were drawn to him, some with hope, others with anger. She saw the tension building, the whispers among the leaders, the fear in the eyes of his followers. And yet Mary stayed. When the night came that changed everything, Mary felt the air grow heavy. She saw him taken away. She saw the soldiers, the torches, the shouts, the chaos. She followed from a distance, her heart pounding as he was dragged before the authorities. She could do nothing but watch. The one who had restored her was now treated as a criminal. Mary stood near the cross. The sky darkened, the earth trembled, and the sound of his suffering pierced through her. She had once lived with torment inside her mind, but watching him suffer was a pain she had never imagined. She wanted to scream, to run, to turn away, but she couldn't. She stayed until the very end because she knew what he had given her: freedom, healing, dignity, life. She would not abandon him in his final moments. After his death, Mary went to the tomb. Her hands trembled as she carried the spices. The morning was quiet, cold, and heavy with grief. She didn't know how she would roll away the stone. She didn't know what she would find. All she knew was that she needed to be near him one more time. But when she arrived, the stone was gone. The tomb was empty. Her heart shattered. She ran, called for help, returned, and stood before the empty place where his body had been laid. Tears blurred her vision. She sank to the ground, overwhelmed by confusion and sorrow. It felt like losing him all over again. And then she heard a voice. A familiar, steady, life-giving voice. "Mary." She turned and everything changed. The world that had collapsed around her suddenly burst with light. He was there. Alive. Standing before her. She fell to her knees, overwhelmed with awe and joy. He spoke to her gently, telling her to go and share the news. Mary, once broken and forgotten, became the first to proclaim the greatest truth ever revealed. From that moment on, she carried his message with courage. She walked with purpose, remembering where she had come from and who had restored her. Her story was no longer one of suffering but one of redemption. And wherever she went, her life testified that no darkness is too deep for the light to break through.